9/11/2001. 4 planes change America and the world forever. 19 men, armed with box cutter knives, strike a stunning blow against the mightiest superpower on the planet. Five passengers are already checking in at Boston Logan Airport.
Can I ask you a few questions?
They're booked on American Airlines Flight 11 to Los Angeles. Automated screening selects 3 of the men for additional scrutiny, but all 5 pass through checks without incident. American Airlines Flight 11 will be one of over 5,000 commercial flights in the skies within the next hour. 7:59 a.m. American Airlines Flight 11 climbs into the Boston skies. Its route to LA will take it due west. Looking after the economy class cabin is number 3 flight attendant Betty Ong. With the flight only half full, the trip should be fairly relaxed. Minutes after takeoff.
American 11 Boston, this is Boston, do you hear me?
Boston Air Traffic Control loses radio contact with the flight.
American 11 Boston, this is Boston, can you hear me?
Despite multiple attempts to contact the crew for 10 minutes, there's no response. With thousands of flights in the sky every day, this is not an unusual occurrence. But at 8:24, Air Traffic Control overhear an in-flight announcement from the pilot's cabin.
We have some planes that stay quiet and you just right ready to the airport.
The message is clearly intended for passengers only, and it's immediately interpreted as suspicious by an air traffic controller in Boston.
American 11.
8:28. The report comes to Ben Sliney. 8:34 a.m. On board, Betty Ong, in desperation, has managed to contact her airline, calling the reservation center in Raleigh, North Carolina.
My name is Betty Ong. I'm number 3 on flight 11. I think we're getting hijacked. Can anybody get up to the cockpit? No, the cockpit is not answering their phone, and the door won't open. We don't know who's up there. And our number 1 has been staffed, and our 5 has been staffed.
8:35. The plane is not responding to air traffic controllers. And for the last few minutes, it's been deviating from its route towards New York. But the hijackers have switched off the plane's transponder, meaning Bottiglia doesn't know its speed and altitude. He only has the primary radar blip. The last reported sighting of American Airlines Flight 11 is just north of Manhattan, New York City. 8:43 a.m. On board American 11, flight attendant Betty Ong has been doing her best to let people on the ground know what's happening on the plane.
I can't get into the cockpit. Is anybody still there? We are, absolutely. You're doing a great job. Just stay calm, okay, buddy? What's going on, honey? Okay. Aircraft is erratic again. Probably erratic. Betty, talk to me. Betty, are you there? I think we might have lost her.
8:46. American Airlines Flight 11 crashes into the North Tower of the World Trade Center, hitting the building between the 93rd and 99th floors.
This just in, you are looking at obviously a very disturbing live shot there. That is the World Trade Center. We have unconfirmed reports this morning.
The first thing that I saw was a huge conflagration, and in my mind, of course, I knew that could not be a small aircraft.
8:51 a.m. With no official word that the plane involved is the passenger airliner American 11. The military send the two F-15 fighter jets to look around for the missing flight. 9 a.m. The U.S. Air Force's F-15s are still over 100 kilometers away, attempting to track down American 11. Now, United 175 begins a terrifying descent.
Another plane just hit. Right, oh my God, it hit another building. Flew right into the middle of it. Explosion. My God, it's right in the middle of the building.
At 9:03, Flight 175 hits the South Tower. Panic spreads around lower Manhattan. Primary radar picks up American airline Flight 77 en route from Washington to LA, and it's miles off course. 11 minutes earlier, the flight had begun to turn away from its planned route when it switched off its transponder and radio contact was lost. Now, just a blip on radar screens. The flight has turned back east, heading towards the nation's capital. The F-15 fighter jets reach Manhattan. It's now a scene of devastation. At the same time, 500 kilometers away, at Langley Air Force Base, Virginia, another two fighter jets, F-16s, are deployed in the hunt for Flight 11. At 9:32, American Flight 77 is still heading east towards the nation's capital. Only at 9:36, when they are 240 kilometers from Washington, D.C., are the jets vectored towards American 77 and Washington airspace. .37 a.m.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. We're looking at a live picture from Washington, and there is smoke pouring out of the Pentagon.
Three was just too much to bear and not do something about it. I can't physically control all the aircraft, but I can certainly eliminate all the aircraft from the sky.
This has been flying ahead of ATC.
That was the point at which I gave the order to land all aircraft at the nearest airport, regardless of their destination.
Over 4,000 aircraft in American airspace all begin to land. It's an unprecedented move.
It did cross through my mind that, of course, they could fire me for that, but I didn't really give that a lot of thought.
Even as flights are landing, by 9:44, air traffic controllers have spotted a fourth plane, United 93, start to follow an ominous pattern.
United 93 had deviated from its route of flight and had changed its transponder code.
Heading from Newark to San Francisco, the flight had been contacted 20 minutes earlier by United ground staff, warning the pilots of possible intrusions into the cockpit. 9:59. At the World Trade Center.
Oh, there it goes, there it goes, there it goes, there it goes.
The 110-story South Tower collapses. And air traffic controllers are now trying to work out if United 93 has been hijacked. Sliney can only track the plane as it appears to head for the Washington, D.C. area. The U.S. Air Force F-16s rush to set up a defensive patrol above the nation's capital.
As we were watching United 93, we received a report from an aircraft in the area of a large smoke plume emanating from the ground. We made the presumption that that aircraft had struck the ground in western Pennsylvania.
The plane comes down, just 20 minutes flying time short of Washington, D.C. All 44 passengers and crew are killed.
These are the first pictures we have in. Initial reports indicated no survivors.
25 minutes later, in downtown Manhattan, the North Tower of the World Trade Center collapses. In the space of just 102 minutes, the 4 hijacked planes have claimed the lives of almost 3,000 people. September 11th, 2001. 2 hours from disaster. 5 men check into American Airlines Flight 11, bound for Los Angeles. 3 of them are flagged by the Computer-Assisted Passenger Pre-Screening System, or CAPS. The computerized algorithm uses factors such as age, nationality, and travel records to identify potentially high-risk individuals. None of the hijackers are on the FAA's no-fly list, which would bar them from getting on the plane. And several of the hijackers board the plane carrying box-cutter knives on their person or in their hand luggage.
There were regulations about the blade length. It was less than 4 inches, for example. It was not considered to be necessarily a dangerous weapon.
Over the next 45 minutes, 14 more hijackers check into 3 more flights at cities across the northeast US. 3 more of them are picked up by CAPS, and several of the hijackers are also carrying knives. And yet, all of them are allowed to board their flights. Previously, hijackers had taken over passenger airliners to win a bargaining position, not for suicide missions. Nobody is prepared for a deadly airborne attack. And once on the flights, it was a simple matter for the hijackers to take over the planes. Thirty-two minutes before first impact, the hijackers make their move.
If the hijackers demanded entry to the cockpit, the protocol at that point was open the door, let them in.
The 19 hijackers take over 4 passenger jets and turn them into guided missiles. From this moment, there is nothing any airline or air traffic controller can do to stop them. The last line of defense is seemingly the US military, the biggest, best-equipped air force in the world. 9 minutes to disaster. Farmer discovers that unlike the bureaucracy that hampered the CIA and FBI, ATC threw away the rulebook. An air traffic controller was so concerned, he called direct to a local airbase in Rome, New York.
Yes, 1 second.
Colonel Bob Marr has to handle the situation.
The first call we got was from the line controller at Boston Center saying, I've got a problem here and I need more help. I'm going to go to the military and get it.
8 minutes to disaster. The military have been notified, but that doesn't trigger an automatic armed response. Marr still requires an order from a superior officer before he can scramble planes. The prompt actions of the quick-thinking air traffic controller hit the brick wall of military bureaucracy. Seconds to disaster. Marr orders 2 jets to scramble. Since the end of the Cold War, America's rapid response force has been reduced. Just 4 jets are on standby to defend half of America's East Coast. The nearest are at Otis Air Force Base on Cape Cod in Massachusetts, 250 kilometers from New York City. As the first passenger airliner flies into the World Trade Center, the pilots are still waiting for the all clear. The F-15s only take off from Otis 7 minutes after the first attack hits. Even after the first impact, nobody in authority yet knew that it was American 11 that had flown into the North Tower. Even if it was still in the air, finding American 11 was going to be a problem for the military. Military radar was set up to look far beyond US borders for potential threats, not to track civilian planes. So any fighter pilot looking for a passenger jet would need to be guided by the civilian air traffic controllers. 9 a.m. The two F-15s are closing in on New York City. The thought of anyone flying a hijacked plane on a suicide mission still isn't computing. 1 minute to second impact. The authorities continue to respond to confusing reports of the first crashed plane, American 11, still flying in or around New York City. The F-15 fighter jets are still along the coast, looking for a plane that no longer exists. And now the second hijacked passenger jet, United 175, is about to hit the Twin Towers. Now, America knows without question it is under direct attack. At this point, the national command structure, senior politicians and the military should spring into action. News reports on the day itself and in the weeks following suggest that a coordinated response is instantly triggered and that it comes close to foiling the next attacks. In the months after 9/11, this remains the official line on the third hijacked plane. But the 9/11 Commission reveals the true picture. When it comes to United 93, the fourth hijacked plane, the official line that the authorities were in control of the situation is even stronger.
It was on radar. They had the authorizations they needed to intercept the plane and, if necessary, take it down.
But as John Farmer reviews the military's recordings, a different story comes to light. Farmer's investigation discovers that at the highest levels of authority, no one was taking decisions relevant to the situation on the ground.
From the perspective of the command center and myself, there was no one in the nation who knew what was going on.
The truth of that day is that the national command structure was irrelevant at the critical time period.
The terrible truth of 9/11 is that the only people making a difference were the civilians on the front line, the ATC, and the crews and passengers aboard the hijacked planes, the last line of defense. 20 months from disaster, two suspected Al-Qaeda activists moved to California. But a lack of communication between intelligence agencies means the FBI don't even know they're in the country. 14 days from disaster, the FBI begins a manhunt, but it's too little, too late. 2 hours from disaster, at 3 separate airports across the east coast of the US, 19 hijackers check in for flights. A few are selected for extra scrutiny, but all are allowed to board their planes with weapons easily to hand. 32 minutes from disaster. On American Airlines Flight 11, the hijackers use their weapons to take control of the plane. Nine minutes from disaster. The only meaningful response to the hijacking comes from the Boston air traffic controller, who immediately bypasses normal protocols and contacts the military directly. 3 minutes from disaster. As the authorities struggle to find American 11, Betty Ong struggles to pass information to people on the ground, but it goes nowhere. Seconds from disaster. Air Force Colonel Bob Marr takes a gamble and scrambles 2 F-15 fighter jets from Otis Air Base. But it's too late. At 8:46, American Airlines Flight 11 plows into the North Tower of the World Trade Center. 17 minutes later, at 9:03 a.m., Flight 175 crashes into the South Tower. Flight 77 hits the Pentagon at 9:37, 51 minutes after first impact. The only thing that stops the hijackers on United Airlines Flight 93 is the heroic effort of the passengers and crew. Their struggle ends with a final crash in a field outside Pittsburgh at 10:03. The institutions that should have protected America were unable to cope with a threat they had never imagined. Every government agency struggled without accurate information.
We did not know what was going on. We never could figure it out.
And without precise direction, the military was powerless to intervene.
There was not enough time to do what we needed to do. The fighters were not able to shoot down because they were never within range of any aircraft to shoot down.
Almost 3,000 people died on September 11th, 2001.
This really relatively simple attack thwarted every expensive system that we had in place. I think that's why it was such a shock.
Since the tragedy of 9/11, every government agency involved has made sweeping changes. Intelligence agencies have been forced to work more closely together. Airport security has been tightened. Military and civilian radar and air traffic operations have been merged to talk in one language. But it remains to be seen whether all the lessons have been learned and America is safe.
I think we have better intelligence than we did, but that does not mean that we are protected against the next curveball, whatever it might be.
Still around, guys, still around.
A painful return, a decade on from 9/11.
Tom Canavan. Tom, what happened, man? Big boom. Come down the steps, everything fine till we got to the basement, and then everything just fell in. I got trapped in there with another guy, crawled out, kept getting hit in the head, hit bags all around. Finally, we clawed our way out over the rubble. Come on down. We did all right. All right, way to be, Tom. Let's go.
The same man, the same street, but both very different 10 years apart.
There's only 20 of us that were buried. I'm one of those 20 people that managed to get out of here alive. There has to be another reason I'm here. I don't want to go through the pressure of it. I don't question why. When it's your time, it'll be your time, no matter where or what you're doing. I'm a big believer in that. And with all the therapy I had to go through to help me, what I realized is you can't change the past. You can't worry about the future. So the only thing you have is right now. So you make the most of what you can do right now.
Tom worked on the 47th floor in the North Tower. He was leaving with 4 co-workers when the South Tower collapsed, although just a few feet away, they were buried and killed.
After 10 years, and it seems like yesterday, you know, the physical pain is gone, long gone. The mental pain, that anguish still is every day. You hear certain noises, certain smells, a plane flies over, it comes back. It'll never go away, so.
He now volunteers at the 9/11 Tribute Center, describing it as part of the healing process. Jean and Dan Potter back in Manhattan. She walked down 81 floors of the North Tower in high heels, her husband a firefighter. Their lives changed irrevocably.
It's hard to come back because, you know, for us we feel the 3,000 souls that perished that day. But to see this magnificent tower going up, I say, we rose again from the rubble.
They couldn't bear to stay in their home in Battery Park, once in the shadow of the towers.
Unfortunately, we had to move from New York City as we faced the towers. We couldn't get home for weeks, and when we did, it was too heartbreaking to remain.
Survivors left asking questions as to why they'd been saved. Former janitor William Rodriguez helped lead many to safety in his North Tower.
I have the survivor's guilt. Why did I survive and my friends didn't? And it became basically the motivating force of what I do as an activist right now, because then I realized that I have to be the voice for those who died.
9/11 changing him forever too. He's now an advocate for 9/11 victims and their families and the rights of immigrants.
From that day, what really matters is that you have something important in your life, and it's your friends and your family. There's nothing else. You know, it's not your job, how much money you make, it's just your family and your friends.